So it was a full blown surgery because they had to do a DNC and all this stuff. And I was in the, like,
Right.
at home resting like a good little patient. And my lady doctor called me and she said, and I'm so glad she used these words. I'm so sorry to tell you the polyp was cancerous. And in that moment, I don't know what happened. I went from laying in my bed, resting, thinking my sweet doctor's just calling me, to getting up, somehow trying to
Right.
get pen and paper. So I was sitting there and I'm like sitting there just writing down what she said. And the only words I could write down were oncologist, Monday, total hysterectomy, chemo. And I was like a sheet of paper. And I don't even remember the next 30 minutes of what she said.
Right.
I just knew that she's going to send me information and I'm going to meet my oncologist on Monday. I love
We're doing
it.
our tapping.
You know all this
Oh
stuff.
yeah, totally.
Woo! Here we
I can
are.
already tell. I've known this
Oh my
woman
gosh.
for
I can
three
feel the
minutes, and
energy, Heather.
the
I
second I
can
saw
feel
her,
the
I'm like,
energy.
this
Woo,
is going to
stirring
be
'em. Here we go.
amazing. I want to introduce you to Dr. Ann Arvizu, which I just think is the coolest last name. Let me tell you a little bit about this amazing human being that I have. Dr. Ann Arvizu is the CEO of Core Life Group, a premier management consulting firm and professional development division, Core Life Institute. So you're the creator of the Core Life method, registered trademark, so you can tell it's official. It's also written in all caps, so you know that this is legit. It's a transformational coaching system that has cracked the code on life work balance. As somebody who had no balance when I worked corporately, I'm so interested in hearing what you have to say about this. You're also the host of the award winning Corepreneur, also registered trademark, all caps, you know it's legit, podcast, and is the author of the Affluent Minds. Author of the book Affluent Minds, Core Expressions for a Rich and Wonderful Life, and is on a mission to help women over 50 build seven-figure coaching and consulting businesses, helping them achieve their own freedom, autonomy, and success. And I'm like, that's amazing. So, fun fact, you used to be a model on QVC.
Yeah.
I've never, what did you model? What was
Oh,
did you model slacks?
slacks, clothes,
Yes.
jewelry, and I put videos together. So I can tell you the fakeness of TV firsthand of like the little 2-minute video that makes it look so easy, like took us like 40 minutes to, have me try and figure out
Right.
and have them film it and everything. So yeah, I did all of it and it was really fun. So hand model and clothes were fun. So I was on those stages. I loved it. I was 19. So that was 40 years and,
Oh my gosh. I
many
think it
pounds
would have
ago.
been,
So
it must have just been like, just because some of the hosts, there was a great show on last year with Vanessa. Oh my gosh, I can't think of her last name at the moment, but it was with Molly Shannon. And it's all about a QVC type show. And then just how important, like, you got to be able to sell like that whole time. Like, just,
yeah.
so it must have been fascinating to see that from the inside out too.
Talk about sales training.
QVC, that is so funny. Oh my gosh, seriously. Okay, so you have a lot going on. And so tell me about, because you had a big curveball not too long ago, like within 2021. Tell me about your curveball.
Yeah, so let's go for a second back to 2020. So all of us who are, entrepreneurs and business owners, we already took a hit for our business because of some pesky little pandemic, right? And nobody knew what was going on and we're applying for
Yes.
PPP loans and we're getting our teams to stay on with us and all this stuff and it was like we were coming last. And then I just kept by the end of that year, in September of that year, I went to a women's entrepreneur group out in Scottsdale and I went a day before and I decided I'm going to go climb Camelback Mountain. Like it was 107 degrees. And I was just feeling so like with my hormones, with like just, I had gone into early menopause starting in my late 30s. And now I'm like in my early 50s. So at that point, I was like, I've
Right.
got to reclaim me, right? The Beatles song. I got to get back to where I once belonged. And so I decided to go mountain climbing for that. And of course, like, I needed help on the way up. I was like, can I have some water out of your camel pack? Like, what am I thinking? I brought like 2 bottles of water and now I know what to do.
Wha-
But it was like a prove yourself
Right.
what's going on. Cause for one doctor, it was like 18 months of going to
Mm,
doctor after doctor going, there's nothing wrong with you, honey, and pat me on the knee and send me on my way. And there's nothing wrong with you. This is menopause. Ha ha ha. That's why you're gaining weight around your middle. That's why you feel so terrible. I'm like,
right.
every woman I know is going through menopause, but my symptoms are 60,000 times more. I don't feel right. I'm not myself. I'm completely dysphoric. This is very strange. I am like one of the most energetic people. And this is like, wow, post
Right.
cancer, 3 years later, 3 years cancer free, by the way. But like I had so much
Awesome.
energy back in the day. And so I wasn't feeling like that at the time. So it took another year till the middle of 2021 where they finally found a polyp in my uterus. So I went and had that removed. And I was
Oh my
in the
gosh.
couple days after the surgery. So it was a full-blown surgery because they had to do a DNC and all this stuff. And I was in the
Right.
like at home resting like a good little patient. And my lady doctor called me and she said, and I'm so glad she used these words. I'm so sorry to tell you the polyp was cancerous. And in that moment, I don't know what happened. I went from laying in my bed, resting, thinking my sweet doctor's just calling me, to getting up, somehow trying to
Right.
get pen and paper, like in my bedroom, I have one of those built-in like kind of coffee stations in the middle of the hallway kind of thing and with the little
Right.
countertop and everything. So I went over there, get in the drawer and I'm trying to find
Do
a
you live
pen.
at a hotel? Do you live in a hotel? Yes.
No.
Yes.
So, and
Good.
this is my home in the Keys, by the way, where I wrote my book, but in my main home up in Miramar, it's just a really
Oh
nice
my
layout. I
gosh.
love it. So that's the launch life, baby. But anyway, so I was sitting there and I'm like sitting there just writing down what she said. And the only words I could write down were oncologist, Monday, total hysterectomy, chemo. And I was like a sheet of paper. And I don't even remember the next 30 minutes of what she said.
Right.
I just knew that she's going to send me information and I'm going to meet my oncologist on Monday. And my husband was
Right.
like my office is on one side of the house and his is on the other side of the house. I walked across our house and I opened his office door. He was on a teleconference and he took one look at my face. He never stops the call. We're kind of like, get away, when we're busy. So he took one
Right.
look at my face
Right.
and
Right.
knew
Right. Yeah.
something was wrong. And he just was like, I got to go. And he comes off and I go, it was cancerous. And we always just from that minute on called it and it's cancerous and I'm not, and we're going to get it out. And it started like
Right.
that. But the fear that came upon me, like in that day and the next couple days, it took a little unraveling and some miracles, which did happen over the next couple days. I'll stop there and see if you have a question.
No, oh my gosh. Like
Should
that
I keep
is
going?
just so I can really relate to when you have like a really big unknown health thing, right? And and I just think that this is just one of those things. And I completely relate to when you were like, we always come last, right? Like, I've had things happen where I don't even make my own list. Like I don't even make the list. It's not even I'm not even on the bottom of the list. It's like I'm not even a consideration. And so when you just know something is not right, and then you don't know what it is, and you're just like that almost certain uncertainty. So then you
Yeah.
get this diagnosis. So then you have something. So then tell me, like, yeah, tell me, you said like, so
Hmm.
were you already in this space of like this core preneur, like this core method system? Like, were you already developing this, working in this space?
Yes, I received my divine
It
download of the core life method back in 2009. So I have lived through my own core life method
okay,
wheel. I have developed a huge system out of it. I've written, you see, a book on it, a textbook on it, all that. I have done programs, everything. But but I guess I really hadn't had my own health crisis, right? So I had to go something. I've gone through so many of
right,
other people's health crises. I was adopted at birth. Both my parents died from cancer. So for me, I had no genetic markers of cancer because I'm a
Oh my
PharmD. I'm a
goodness.
pharmacist. I spent 25 years in the pharmaceutical industry. I had already had genetics testing. I had no markers of cancer. I didn't have a genetic link. And so I found out my own genetic link because I studied two main therapeutic areas in the pharmaceutical industry as I did clinical research and development in neuroscience and oncology, like which go hand in hand because, you go through a big health crisis, you can get depressed,
I mean,
anxiety, all the things.
right,
So it's like, how is this happening to me? I'm that expert. So how did I not know about this for myself? Right. How did I not think that there could be, I knew something was wrong, but I didn't go there like, oh, this is probably that. I just, for 18 months, doctors weren't
right, right,
responding. I didn't know my own story. But during that, like when you first get that call and the diagnosis, and I think maybe you can relate to this, and then you have like from Thursday to Monday, this waiting period, which I think a lot of people go through, there's like
right,
there's this black hole of your mind playing tricks with you. And so for me, yes, there
right,
was the core life method in my life, but something else kind of happened a little bit more miraculous than that. And that was amazing is that I was supposed to be part of a VIP luncheon with Jack Canfield in Miami a year before. And because of the pandemic, it was
right.
postponed. I got the diagnosis on that Thursday. And on Friday, I get an email from the venue in Miami. Jack's going to be on tomorrow. You're invited to the Zoom room and you'll have first dibs to, ask questions because you're the VIP. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. So, needless to say, I
I
just
mean, were you
started
just
like,
like, thank you, universe?
okay,
Like, you
I'm
really
going to get an
had
answer tomorrow.
a lot of people
And
a
I
lot
got
of
on this
things
call with
looking
Jack
out for
Canfield
you.
and I said, what if this happened to you? And he said, if cancer happened to me, first thing I would say is
Oops.
go to Joe Dispenza. Go find anything, read his stuff, see his stuff. And then the
Oh,
second
yeah.
thing, yeah. And then the second thing he said, I want to ask you a question and ask yourself this every day. What if cancer wasn't happening to you? What if it was happening for you? And I have shared that with countless other people
Right,
since that situation because it is the most brilliant question. So thank God for that coach that came in my life at exactly
right.
that moment to give
Well, it
me the
helps to
right
take
resources.
it from right, because like because I had a health situation that culminated in brain surgery, which
Mhm.
seemed like no big deal after all the other things that were on the table. And when you're trying to like, I called it sort of my journey of ruling things out. I was trying to rule out ALS, MS, muscular dystrophy, and brain tumors. And so, and there are gaps like in, just seeing going from moving from one doctor and specialist to the other, like, it just takes a long time. And so sitting in that period where something is happening, like now that like that cancer is like growing inside, you know what I mean? Like you have cancer, you're just like, oh my gosh, there's no way. Did you ever feel like, I don't know, I sort of felt like there was like that I had to somehow really maintain a positive, like that I couldn't have one what I would
Yeah.
deem a negative thought, like being
Yep.
sad or, and so, but there was no way you're not going to feel those. So I figured out a way like, how can I feel that whole of the emotion? Dr. Joe Dispenza, just number one, is just
Yeah.
absolutely the
Phenomenal.
most brilliant person.
Yeah.
I have read only three of his books. So Becoming Supernatural,
Mhm.
You Are the Placebo, and Breaking the Habit of being yourself. Is
Being
that the one?
yourself. Yeah. I read
He's just
Supernatural. Mhm.
well, and just yeah, and so like I had my issue was I had muscle wasting in my limbs. And so it's not like recovering from this is not like recovering from an injury where you're mending and you have muscle memory. It's like there is no memory. So I get to create a new memory. And I just remember the day when I really felt
Mhm. Mhm.
my brain, my left hand was very affected. And my brain gave a signal to my left hand and my left hand responded. And I was like, it's happening. It's just like, and of course, I don't want anyone to feel for like months and months that they might have ALS or have like a ruptured brain aneurysm that requires brain surgery. But I do wish everyone could feel like, I'm sure you're just like, I wish no one, of course, I don't want to wish anyone has cancer. But
Right.
at the same time, when you're on the other side of it and you're healing and you're feeling like all these like real connections happening, I do wish everyone knew what that felt like
Mhm. I know.
without any
And
of the the stuff, like without any of the scary stuff that happens, like
Yeah, the
that
scary
causes,
stuff is
that makes
scary.
you, yeah.
You went through the same
Okay,
thing.
so
You went through this time period where you're just trying to rule out, and that, that's a long and winding road, another Beatles song. It's a long
yeah.
and winding road in terms of what is like possible for my mind so I can up level myself during this time, because then I don't know about you, but I was
Right.
having some very lucid, very weird dreams. Like I'm like calling the dream analyst, right? So stuff was happening and
Oh,
I just
amazing.
yeah.
What was the weirdest dream you had? What was
Oh
the weirdest
god.
dream you had?
Well, right now, so we just had a curveball for the past couple weeks. So I'm in the state of Florida. I have two homes in the state of Florida, and one of them is down in the Florida Keys. And we were here. We're getting our boat and our houses actually potentially ready for sale. So and we might be
Mm,
going on a new adventure, maybe early next year or the end of this year. So to be continued. But we're in the middle of doing everything and like getting the boat detailed and all this stuff. And hurricanes are coming. And where's the question? I'm sorry. I just went through. I don't know why there was
oh,
relevancy.
well, your weirdest dream, your weirdest dream,
Oh, the
your
weirdest
weirdest
dream was
dream, your
okay. The
weirdest
weirdest
lucid
dream
dream.
actually was
Yeah.
it was here it took place in the Florida Keys. So we have a boat and we would 4 miles shore. There's a lighthouse called Alligator Reef. You can go snorkel around and everything. And in that dream, there was I was off the boat. My husband went kind of off with the boat, and I'm like off the boat, and these sharks came up, but they weren't touching me. They were just sort of like encircling me, these two sharks. And I'm like, yeah, I swim in
Right.
shark infested waters, kind of thing. But I knew I wasn't getting touched. So that was a weird one. And another one was like this alligator, which
Mm,
was right after the polyp. No, so I had Florida dreams. This alligator
yeah.
was on we live on a lake in our other house, and this alligator was like at our little lighthouse. We live in a place called Sunset Lakes, and there's a lighthouse there too. So there was in two dreams there was like a lighthouse, which is like a sign of hope. Two different
Interesting.
dreams, 2 different days in a row after the first surgery. And it was this alligator that all of a sudden grew in size, and it was like the size of a dinosaur that turned into kind of a serpenty dinosaur, came to my lake, and I just went, "Stop." And it stopped. And so I think in both dreams, it was like, "You're gonna be okay. As scary as this is, you're gonna be okay."
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That is intense. I didn't have anything like that. Like I had a shark infested, but boy, I mean, just the metaphor for what that means, like, and how you knew you were going to be protected to, like, you weren't going to be touched. Like it was dangerous around you, but you knew like you were fundamentally safe. That we just have so much wisdom
Yeah.
in our brains, so you're diagnosed, you have to have a complete hysterectomy. So this is like, so you see Jack Canfield. Okay, he's like, blah blah
Mhm.
blah, cancer's happening for you. Listen to read Dr. Joe Dispenza, and that's it. So then you
And
had
then
your
it was a
surgery
big
like the
mad rush.
following week, or no? Then you had your
Yeah.
meeting with your oncologist. Yeah.
Yep, I had the meeting with the oncologist. He kind of like calmed me down, but then that's when your life spins out of control. At least I had, good fortune of having a great oncologist, nice hospital, and they put everything into fast forward for me. He had just come over from my alma mater, one of my alma maters, University of Florida, which is where I got my doctorate. And so he knew we were just like, here's some information, and here's the journal articles, and he answered every question. He spent 45 minutes with me. He booked the surgery. So there's a little bit loss of control, especially when you're kind of a control freak like me. Like there's a loss of control. Here's my agenda, here's my
Right.
calendar, where's my phone, right? I will tell you when I'm going to get the surgery. We had to cancel a family
Right.
vacation. We just canceled everything, and within about a week and a half I was in surgery with a total radical hysterectomy, lymph node removal that kind of leaves you reeling and healing for 6 months and numb
Wow.
for 6 months and all kinds of stuff. Like people just don't know. And then people come up to you and, everybody, I'm like, I only want to hear positive stuff. Like, don't even la, 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 right. I'm going to be fine. And so
Right.
I put up the strong front in front of everybody because I only wanted like what I believe in is the prayer of agreement. around me. I only wanted people positive to say,
Right.
this is going to be done and she's going to be fine. And that's it. And I didn't want to hear, because most Americans would hear that word, the C word, and they think it's immediate death sentence. And that's kind of where the fear
Right.
goes. But I had to just say thank you for that. I know that there's certain people in my life that care for me so much. And thank you that I have time to rest, because I'm a total workaholic. And thank you.
Right.
Like, I had to look at it in a very different way all the way through the process for months. And I think what happens during a situation like this, and you start surrounding yourself, you reorganize who is your inner circle. And you can tell by the way people talk or the
Right.
way they don't talk. Like, there were certain people that I called and I said, long-term quote unquote best friends or family members that I said, okay, these guys are going to be prayer people around me. And like, some of them like would be like, you got this, don't have anxiety today. Or they would text me, but they would never ask how I was. They'd never actually call. So I'd get lots of the text messages and
Right.
I'm like, today I'm fine.
That's what I
I'm
was
not
just
anxious. Right. I'm like, come on. And they're people just,
right.
so I had a coach in my life that said, reorganize who's really there. You'll see it'll reorganize. And no matter what people
Right.
say, just let it be as if they love you, right? Like, just take it as, I love you. They're actually trying to
Right.
give something for them that helps them, and not the other way around. But then there are some people that I had to just
Right.
kick out of my life, like,
Like,
really, not physically, but like, I don't want to hear
yeah,
what you have
it's
to say today.
interesting.
Thank you.
I have a friend who was just diagnosed. Well, I had a friend who was just diagnosed with Parkinson's.
Mm,
And so he called me and was like, talk to me about like your journey and that kind of stuff. And I said, well, because I had a couple of rules. So I have a really good friend who's a Buddhist. And, Buddhists are like compassionate, but they're also like tough. Like
mm,
they have really good boundaries. So and she had like a major health thing too. So I was like, what do I do? And she's like, well, first of all, nobody can speculate in front of you, good or bad. So no speculation.
mhm.
So I was able, and then for people, and this was as a mom, and I think it's just as a woman, you know, she was like, it is not your job to support anyone through this. She's like, of course your friends and family can have like a good cry in front of you, but
Yes.
they have to have their shit together to be on your support team. So if they need help, they're struggling with it, they need to find their own support because they got to come up and ready for you. So that was amazing. And what happened is my kids got really close. They got really close with my husband and one of my sisters
Yep.
in a different way, which was really cool to witness. And then they could be really good. And then the other one was like, I only could stick to the facts. Like I couldn't get ahead of myself. And what I told my friend is I said, what's really interesting is the people who you think are going to be on your support team might not be on your support team. Like, so my support team were these amazing 5 women, none of whom I would like, like I have none of whom live in Denver. They're all my friends like that I've met, over the years in different locations. So I can totally relate to that too. And I try to say like, oh, no one knows what to like, they don't know what to do. Like, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I'm not gonna lie, like it did hurt my feelings sometimes. Like, and now that I'm better, it's like, hey girl, let's get together. And I'm like, okay, because of course I'll always go out, but it's like, does
Yeah.
that, you know what I mean? Like
Very
that's
much.
something that I was a little surprised about too. Like you
Yeah.
think it's surprising who shows up in your life, like, and who's there for you. And then the advice you get. And I just know it was all the right people. Like I had a friend, she was living in Australia at the time. So I would have this awful insomnia and I would call her, like we'd be texting like it would be like 3 a.m. my time and early in Australia. And she was like my researcher. So anything I needed, she would go out and research for me.
Mhm.
So I didn't get caught like going. So I just had
Mm.
so many people helping me too. And it was amazing to be able to lean in to that kind of support, like ask for support, trust that it's going to be there, and then it's there and you can like really trust fall into it. Is
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, I don't want anyone to think that they have ALS or to have a ruptured aneurysm. I don't want anyone to have to go through any of that, have endometrial cancer. Like, I don't want anyone to have any of that. But to have the feeling of that is truly like a gift to
Mhm.
have.
Mhm.
And I don't mean that like, oh, it's such a gift, like silver lining, but there's so many silver linings in these dark clouds. Like
There
if
are.
you, I think, I don't know, if you just allow yourself to see them and ask for help too, that was also
Oh, that's a biggie.
a game changer.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like
Right?
I did not, that was hard. And I know that there's a version of myself, I think even as recently as maybe like 3 years ago, where I would have been like,
Mm.
I wouldn't have told anybody. And I would have been generally disappointed in everyone I know for not recognizing that I'm going through something big, even though I didn't tell anyone.
Right,
It's
right.
like, it definitely, it helps you see things like, so that was like a big one to ask. So you had mentioned that you already had this coaching methodology, this revolutionary transformational coaching methodology in place, but you were like, yeah, that was helpful, but this experience really like took things to the next level. So talk to me a little bit about what it's like to go in with a really well equipped toolbox,
Right.
because sometimes, sometimes you forget like, oh wait, I have a toolbox like I can actually go to. So what was helpful in the toolbox, and how did your toolbox change from this experience relative to core method?
Yeah. So with the core life method, okay, I do have this great toolbox. In fact, there's over 72 tools in that toolbox, but that's my business, right? And that I had to separate myself as like I'm just a person right now and I have to go through this health thing. And I have to see how it's going to affect the bottom line of my business. I have to see how I'm going to keep that
Mm,
afloat and I have to, there's a lot more of you're getting more in and on the business of itself and at the same time, I'm like, well, what
right,
meaning has to come out of actually just this situation? This is a particular health crisis. So I'm everybody's coach and consultant. I needed people in my corner. So it goes back to your point of I got to go ask for help. And so when I got on that call, there was that first
right,
help. Like that was just like that call was postponed for a year just for me. I mean, I don't know there's other people on the call, but it was just like it was just for me. I mean, I had my platform moment and I got my answer from
yes,
Jack and it was like, wow, this is amazing timing. There is no there is just and then to watch miracles unfold like there's fear, there's the fight of fear and then there's like, wow, but a turtle appeared in my yard today. And like, how did that happen? And what does a turtle mean? And it means longevity. Like, and then finding out things like that when you actually want to look for miracles around you, when you want to see the dream as something maybe meaningful that your subconscious is trying to
right,
tell you. And then when you're willing to be used, right? By something greater than you that says, okay, it's like, okay, God, what do you want me to do with this? And after a total hysterectomy, you have lots
right,
of sleepless nights and one of my sleepless nights, I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? And I literally got another, just like I got my core life method, call it a download for lack of a better word. But when I got
yes. No,
my
I
divine
call it a
idea,
divine download
you
too.
do, yeah. So when I got that idea and I've developed it out, you feel like there's a calling behind it. And I felt like I had this secondary calling. So I had been
Right,
in philanthropy, I had been the chair of the board of the South Florida YMCA in my area. And I knew how to do nonprofit and I was a big giver. I was raised as a big giver, generosity, as you give, you receive, it comes back to you multifold. And I believe all that. So at one,
hmm,
3 in the morning, I just felt this, this idea come to me when I'm just sitting there awake, like, wish I didn't, wish I could actually sleep again one of these days. And wow, those just became times of reflection. And I had to reframe that this is literally times of reflection. I'm going to just I'm going to let my
right,
body be up from 3 to 6 a.m. And then fall asleep from 6 to maybe 8 or something or take a nap. And in one of those periods of time, I
right.
literally got the download for the Arvizu Foundation for Women with Endometrial Cancer and their caregivers. And it was like, well, that's a really long title. So I gathered a
Oh,
board and I know lots of people from pharma and everything. And we shortened it to Endometrial Cancer Foundation. And so here it is, the Endometrial Cancer Foundation. And I just wanted to bring education, awareness, and inspiration to women because women don't even know their own body parts. And I'm actually really happy that we're recording this in October because what's
right.
October? October is what ribbon?
It it is the peach ribbon.
No, it's the pink
Yes.
ribbon. October.
Oh, well, it's a pink ribbon.
Yep.
I'm sorry. You're right. It is the pink ribbon. You're right. Yes.
Yes.
I should know that, but you have a peach
I do
ribbon.
have a peach
Like there is a
ribbon.
peach ribbon, people. Like just yeah.
So let's talk about the
Yeah.
peach ribbon because women have over 5 different kinds of
Yeah.
gynecological cancer. And I like to teach it from basically the outside in. Okay. Vulvar, vaginal, cervical,
Right.
uterine, and ovarian. And each one of them have different color ribbons. And they're all in September Gynecological Cancer Awareness Month. And women don't even know what these things are. They're like, what's a
Okay.
uterus? What's an endometrial? What's an endometrial cancer? I mean, women don't even know their own body parts. And this was a
Right.
women's disease over 65. Why is it happening now to 35-year-olds? Maybe because of the rampant overuse and abuse of
Mm,
hormones and hormone replacement therapy and birth control and all these things. And, all these different. So endometrial
right.
cancer, when I found out like cervical is teal and white, endometrial is peach. And it was like a really pathetic looking kind of colored peach. It was like this really sad looking peach. So I made it all
Right.
like Florida papaya and ovarian is
Love that.
teal, right? And everybody knows about ovarian because it's a silent killer, right? But it is not. Well, anyway, and then
Right.
the vaginal is like a weird peacock blue, and then that's confused with ovarian, and vulvar is sort of like a purple, but then all gynecological cancers is like a dark purple. What kind of cluster is that? Nobody can understand anything. So when I
Right.
created this, I just created it for people to understand. Come on, wake up, women. We've got to know our own body parts. It's not just the tatas, it's the yaya. So like, come on, let's make sure that our doctors start to listen
Right.
to us because women are like, oh, my
Right.
doctor patted me on the knee too and told me I was going to be fine and told me, okay, get out of my office and here's some hormone replacement therapy. You'll feel better in the morning. Right. And no, like it's right there on the
Right.
labels of these drugs. It says it's going to maybe cause this cancer. And if I had no genetic markers, that's probably the cause of mine.
Oh my gosh. Like that is I can really relate to the fact that I've been checked out like stem to stern. And
Wow.
so the things I've learned about just my brain and my body, like it's just I totally get that. So why do you think that happens that we're just not educated
Yeah, I
on our
think,
own bodies?
there's 15 minutes of healthcare you get in an office and you get your time with your doctor and then it's move on.
Right.
And I just can't tell you, even with women OBGYNs, like they just were not listening. And then I would like, you know what? I have a PPL. I'll go to an
Mm,
endocrinologist. I'll go to someone else. Something's got to give. I'll go to a neurologist.
right.
And then you're like, well, do you have a referral? I'm like, no, I don't have a referral. I'm Dr. Ann and I'm telling you, I'm not feeling well and nobody's catching this. And so
Yeah. I referred myself to
I'm
you.
referring
Yeah, yeah.
myself and I'm just like really getting tired of this
Yeah.
helpless care system that we're going through that takes so long to diagnose something because the number one kind of gynecological cancer is endometrial. So it is the most amount. It's about, 68 to 70,000 people a year, women a year are getting this cancer. About 12,000 people of that 68,000 will die within a year or 5 years. And there's a rare
Right.
disease form of it, which is even more aggressive. So, and it's just a scary process. So I want people to know about this because a lot of women, especially if they're in an
Right.
underserved community, are not getting this diagnosed in time to get it treated to be one of the success stories.
Right. I can only imagine. I just heard something so alarming about women, just how many, just how there are not hospitals and OBGY. So women who get pregnant have to like plan, like they're an hour and a half away from like the closest hospital. So if they're like a high risk pregnancy, it ends up being like this huge issue. I have like 5 hospitals within like a stone's throw. Like I feel like I do not live in a hospital desert. But what is one of the first things that women so if a woman's listening to this right now, a woman or a man, a human being, and they're listening to this and they're just like, I thought a vulva and a vagina were the same things, or very close. Like I don't know the difference. But let's say like they're just like, wow, I really do not know a lot about this. And I've been on hormone therapy. Like, what is the first thing somebody should do to become educated?
I
And do
mean,
you have a resource for them?
yeah, the main resource is the one I started, which is endometrialcancerfoundation.org, and that's kind of what we're going towards because it's
Okay.
a hodgepodge of information out there. And our next initiative, when when we have enough donor funds, because it's a donor advised 501(c)(3) fund, it's a public charity. It's not my charity anymore. It's I report to a board, and I am the board
Right.
chair, but I have to be voted in for my 2 cents, and I have to be actually outvoted, right? Like I have to leave the room
Right.
to go get a vote. So people don't understand that sometimes. But our next initiative is my next podcast, which is Peach Pit Jam with Dr. Ann, which has gotten about 85% of our donor funds. And we're almost there with releasing another podcast
Amazing.
and getting that resource out to people. And we're hoping to get it posted for us for free exclusively on the Pharmacy Podcast Network, since I am a pharmacist and I know those people. And part of my other podcast, Corepreneur,
Right.
has been part of them as well. So our feed goes there. And I'm hoping that they produce the whole thing, and that we get enough funds to just produce it and start it soon. Because these are the kind of, what can you do to
Right.
prevent recurrence? What can you do to know more about your body parts? What can you do to know about the different kinds of lady cancers, and how to prevent them now, and what to really know? Like, I recently did a
Right.
show, so I love to do shows, and I recently did a show called This Week in Pharmacy, and they asked me to talk about, what's the link? It was March, because March was endometriosis month. And they're like, it's endometriosis. Did you ever have that? Is there a link? And so we found the data. I found the data. I have researchers as well. And I reported on all that data for that show. So it was great that we could put that kind of information out there. And it's not just for me
Right.
or the ladies, it's for other researchers. Like, I can't do everything. This team or this little tiny charity can't do everything. But researchers who are in
Right.
hospitals and universities maybe can look for grant money from the government or from big pharma, and do some independent studies that can maybe bring some hope. Because when
Right.
you look at the data out there, there's no apples to oranges. So somebody might say, oh, I'm a stage 1A and I'm a stage 3B, and they find a case study. Well, that case study is not necessarily you. So it's really hard. Like you said, you had to protect yourself from the data while you were going through
Right.
it. That's a word of
Yes.
wisdom for women, and anyone. Like,
Yeah.
don't
It's
look at
find a
the side
friend.
effects.
So my advice is to find a friend, find a wormhole friend who will do the research for you, and they'll go down the wormhole for you, and
Yeah.
then distill it. Like, I even was like, I felt, you had mentioned too, like a couple of times where you felt like just not listened to as well. So how would you recommend, like, knowing, and it's so interesting how you felt like that, and you are a doctor, like you are a doctor, and you felt a little marginalized. Out of all my doctors, like the six specialists I saw, only one doctor made me feel that way. Um, and I thought that that was just really an amazing, because I really, but I'm surprised that as a doctor, another doctor would, like, you speak the same language,
Yeah, it could.
and then how would you have advocated for yourself now? Like, what
Mm,
advice do you have for people
mhm.
who are sitting there feeling like, how do you
Yes.
tell the doctor, like, hey, be quiet, I'm talking?
So,
Like,
two parts to that. Number one, you're going in as a fear-based patient. You're sitting there in a white gown. You got tears rolling down
mm,
your eyes. Your
right.
your husband's next to you, and you're meeting your oncologist, who's an expert in what he does,
Mm,
and you're not an oncologist, right? I'm a PharmD, so I'm marginalized as a doctor to begin with. And so for like, they're like,
thank God you're not a dentist.
yeah, right. You're like, all about
Okay.
the drugs. You have your 20 research studies in front of you. But let me break it down for you, like, because I am this amazing doctor and I'm going to be your surgeon. They also are trying to get your trust at the same
Right.
time and establish that with you, so the dynamic changes so quickly. And so I would say you just have to go in as prepared as you can if you're advocating for yourself. But everybody should have, not just the wormhole researcher who's going to come back out of the hole and bring you only the best reports,
Yeah.
and then try and hide the rest and be, really genteel with that. But then the same thing is you do need an advocate. Everyone needs an advocate. Our dear neighbor and friend Frank is right now going through
Right.
pancreatic cancer, and we're one of their advocates. So my husband and I can now look stuff up for him. And okay,
Right.
we researched this surgery. And plus, if you need it, like now they're up in Pennsylvania, University of Pennsylvania, because they were lucky to have another house up there, and they also have a house down here in the Florida Keys. So
Right.
we're like, okay, if you need to come to Hollywood, Florida, you can come stay at our house. We'll be your. Everybody needs those people in your life, and it's such an honor to do that for someone else. So I can't see why you couldn't find that.
Right.
But like, I think it goes back to what you said earlier, Heather, which is you have to be willing to ask for help, and that's a big thing. Because especially when you're the strong
Right.
woman, or the strong man
Yes.
and the leader, right? The leaders never, they're like, and then people go to you, oh, you
Right.
got this. And all they want to see is stiff upper lip and you got this. And sometimes you just are sitting there by yourself going, I don't got this. Oh
Right.
my gosh. And you
No.
have those
Like
moments. It's
sometimes,
cool.
like when the people were like, yeah, like you got this, I was just like, sometimes I would just say, you're just being like, I'm going through this right now. So you're just being like a little too optimistic right now. But it was like, I did feel this pressure. Like the two things I felt, one was like, if you think one negative thought, you're going to manifest that outcome in your life. And the second one was like, I had to somehow power through.
Right.
Like, I had to do something heroic before I had my brain surgery. So, I'm an entrepreneur. So people are going to be like, oh, are you going to launch something before your surgery? And I was just like, no, actually, because I made the intentional decision to not do anything that caused my brain any stress. Because one of the people I asked for advice from, they were like, how do they heal the brain medically?
Mm,
They put you in a medically induced coma. So how can you get as close? And my energy was way different when this was like my aneurysm was active. But it's like being still was, to me, felt like such a contrarian move, like such an act of revolution in our society. And I just thought I'm powerless over what's happening in my brain right now, right? I have a ruptured aneurysm. So I can't well, I thought I couldn't stop it on my own, but I think I did. But like I can't, like, I need some sort of intervention to help this, but I'm not helpless. Like, I can control what I think and I can control what I eat. And I can control
mhm,
when I sleep. Like, so those, and I just really leaned into those things too. Like,
mhm.
because like I love the so my doctors were like, you're not going to regain anything you lost. Like when I went to my hand specialist after my brain surgery, they were like, why are you here? And I'm like, well, to get like a referral for PT. And he's like, for
Right.
what? And I'm like, for my janky left hand. And he's like, well, you're not going to regain anything you've lost. And I said, you know what? Like, I understand, like, I don't want to make it seem like my doctors were patronizing because I really loved all my doctors, but
Mhm.
I know that they live in this land of absolutes
Yep.
as well,
Yep.
too, and my hand doctor, I was like, well, and then I thought, how many patients have you had who've had a ruptured aneurysm in their basal ganglia that was causing bilateral muscle wasting?
Mhm.
And he's like, well, you're my first, like,
Oh,
on all those. And I said, okay, so we really don't know, you
right.
know, because he's not a neurologist, right? So I was just like, you got to be careful with how you frame that up, because had I a different mindset, I would have been like, okay, well, the doctor just said, and I would have been like pretty much disabled with my left hand and on crutches. Like, so it is interesting. Like I would come in with a lot of and questions, like, could I have ALS and also still walk? Like, and they'd be like, no, that's crazy. And I'm like, well, why is that crazy? Like, so now you have like a completely different conversation. So I always like the and questions, like,
Mhm.
could I have a brain aneurysm and also regain everything I lost?
Mhm.
Well, sure, anything's possible,
Mhm.
And so that's how I feel like, and I feel like I'm going to recover, like really pretty much almost at 100%,
Yeah.
And so I feel super optimistic and hopeful too. And so, if you were going to say, out of one, you sort of distill your biggest learning lesson that came from, and it's just so interesting, like you have this whole nonprofit now that's on this mission that would not have existed had you
Mhm.
not had your diagnosis. That also, like, it was sort of like also 30 years in the making. I mean, you had a whole
Yeah.
career, you have these connections, you had this like
Yeah.
process too. So it's like, when people slip into something and it ends up being like, oh, yes, and I decided to start this nonprofit, you really capitalized on all of your assets that you had too, that you spent decades creating. Like when
Mhm.
I could walk again, my friends were like, oh my God, that's amazing. Like you could walk like 3 weeks after your brain surgery. And I'm like, well, I feel like that was like 25 years in the making. And like I've been practicing hot yoga for 8 years.
Mhm.
So I just feel like this has been like decade my recovery and my ease of recovery was because I had a certain life like up until then,
Mhm.
too. So I don't want to make it seem like, oh yeah, it's easy, but it's certainly not hard either, just
Right.
taking that action. And then you have great outcome. I mean, I've had a great outcome on the other side of it, as
Yeah.
you have too, like with such a major curveball. So, if you were going to distill it down to like the one big lesson that you're like, this is the one thing, like if I could climb up on the roof of my house and just shout it out to the world that everyone should know this,
Yeah.
what would that be?
Gosh, I guess open your spiritual eyes. Like, there's so much more than that box,
Mm,
right? If for
tell me more about that.
Yeah, for cancer, it's the box of the guidelines. Okay, if you're a 1A or a 1B, you fit in this box, and therefore this is the only treatment. And then if you're a 1C or a 2A or
Right,
whatever, you'll fit in this box, and this is the only treatment. And so, our friend Frank, right, as an example, went for chemo and then was told, no, there's no treatment left because that's the box. Then he went to another hospital in another state and it was like, yes, there's a treatment left and we're going to try this, but that treatment's really hard for him right now. And then wait a minute, there's one more really crazy
mm,
experimental thing and we're looking. And so we, his, advocates looked for all the stuff for him. And he's like, yeah, let's do this. Like that is, if that would be the one I'd go for.
right,
So you go out of the box, but then I gave him, the Joe Dispenza thing. I said, here's the Heal documentary. Here's other things, other resources that I loved. And one of them was this book and it showed like 9 things that you should do. And one of them is like, really, how do you increase your own faith? Doesn't matter what faith it is. But how do you increase your faith? How do you open your spiritual
right,
eyes? You can surround yourself with the right people. So everything that we've said today is good. Get the advocate, have community, stay positive, be grateful, all these things. And then open your eyes to see what do the dreams mean. Open your eyes to see like, did you just get a hummingbird and they don't even exist in your area? Right. I had asked that to one of our women
right,
in the
right,
charity. I said, did you get an animal? I got these turtles. And she was like, what? As a matter of fact, I got a hummingbird. And I just marveled at it. And I'm like, how about that? Maybe that was your sign, your wonder, your something to look at that's beyond space and time that is
right,
bending something that's showing you that they're so, have you looked it up? Have you looked up like, what does, Native American spirit medicine have to say about that? And she's like, oh, it meant like that I have like
right,
fast
right,
little wings or something like that. And she had lupus at the same time. And I'm like, wow. So it gave her the message she needed. And for me, like my little experience gave me the
right,
message I needed, longevity. Hey, you got this. Like it went with my dreams. And I just happened to be on a call in another community I'm part of. And this woman said, she was Asian descent. And she said, no, in China, this is a really good sign that you got this turtle. And it was funny because at the time I was like, oh, we just got to rescue the turtle. We have to put it on the other side of the fence. Right. So I'm picking up this poor turtle. And later, these 3
right,
baby turtles just kept coming. So, I mean, look at these things as not just this crazy earthly, what a coincidence, if you start seeing everything
right,
that's the
right,
thing that is happening that you can see that gives you hope, that gets you through the thing, that guides you in some way. That is bigger and more powerful than anything because we
right.
have such a powerful core. And if I could share something from the core life method, life will give you what I call the
Yes,
negative core
please.
four. The negative core four is chaos, overwhelm, resistance, and exhaustion. That is what the outside of our lives, our body life is, right? But
Right,
in the center, we have mind, we have will, we have emotions, and then we have spirit. We have this strong spiritual core. And that's where you are and become and be and stay centered, open, resilient, and energized. So that is like the thing. Okay, what do I really
right.
believe here? What do I really
Centered,
believe?
open. Wait, centered?
Open.
I was like, wait, that spells core.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
centered,
was like, wow,
open,
that spells core. I finally, yes.
resilient, and
I asked some of my
energized.
clients, I said, how many times can I use my brain I asked my clients, I said, how many more times can I use my brain as an excuse for being silly? And they're like,
Mhm.
two more times. And I'm like, okay, I'm really going to treasure those two more times. So that was one of them. It doesn't count against my clients, but like, okay, I love that. Centered,
Cute.
open, resilient. Oh, I love that. That's one of my favorite words. And energized.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Who
Yeah.
doesn't want to feel those things?
Right. So that's what you are inside when you're
I love
doing
that.
that.
Yeah, it is. You don't know what life is going to serve. I mean, that's the whole reason I'm doing this podcast is because I just thought I had a lot of like meaning and reflection and a reason to slow down, which is not nearly as scary as it
Mm.
seems. But I know what it feels like. I'm still not out of it. Like I like to think like, oh, that was behind me, but I'm still like in the process of rebuilding. I'm sure my
Yeah.
brain is still healing, but it's like you want to be like, I feel compelled to share what I've learned because I feel like I learned a really easy practice, like to keep me like feeling emotions, but not getting like ahead of myself or, you know, because it's really easy to get it. I mean, there's no way if you think you might have a deadly diagnosis that you're not going to be thinking about,
Right.
wow, what if I die in the next year? Like you're going to be thinking thoughts like that. And so, um, I just think it's so helpful. Like I know that feeling of being compelled. Like I want to like people have got to know this because it works. If it works, if it works
Yeah.
in this situation, believe me, it's going to work if you're just having an issue with your boss. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it really does apply to any sort of situation where you can get ahead of yourself. Like I've employed it with my kids a ton of times, and it's just so interesting because I'm just like, well, what are you feeling?
Mm.
Like, let's talk about the emotion. And I'm just like, okay, what facts do we have to support this? And then there are usually never any facts. And right there, it's like that then gets you off like that. You're able to like really feel the full emotion without it sort of taking over
Yeah.
too. So
That's a great
I love
question.
this.
Yeah, because that
Centered,
takes you
open,
out of the
resilient.
facts and puts you right inside. And when you're in your core, like, what do you really
Yeah. And
believe? Do I believe I'm gonna be gone in 3 years? Or do I really believe that I can heal? Is that healing's possible? What do I believe about healing? What
right.
quote can I
Yes.
what quotes can I surround myself on my computer that says, that healing is
Right.
whatever. I remember like my husband handed me a bunch of scriptures and other people would give me like really positive quotes and I had everything up and or I'd see myself in the future. Like, oh, I can't wait till when my New York Times bestseller comes out. It's
Right.
probably going to be 10 years from now. So, I have at least that, right? So, and then my fourth New York Times bestseller, well, that's
Right.
going to
Right.
be
Yeah.
so give yourself vision and a vision board, things like that. What is the vision of the future that you
Right.
want to create for yourself? I love the story from one of my mentors, Marcy Shimoff, and she shared about her dad. And he had
Hmm.
retired and he was, I think in his, if I have the story right, 80s or 90s. And he said he was a dentist. He worked with his hands and he decided to do needlepoint. And it wasn't until after he finished this massive
Wow.
tree of life needlepoint, like it took him 4 years. Like he had a mission, like keep yourself on mission, keep yourself with goals.
Amazing.
Right?
Yeah.
Keep yourself with something amazing to give to the
Right.
world. Because sometimes you don't feel that way when you're like depleted or you're
Right.
or you're stuck in your head. Tony Robbins always used to say, when you're stuck in your head, you're dead. But if you just go with your core of what do you want to do? What do you want to create?
Right.
And you make it future focused, I don't think there's anything that can
Yes.
stop you.
No, like that is so beautiful. Like I think because you said like I decided to like really take care of my body too. Like you were like I decided, and I remember when I was really really sleeping a lot because I would get any sort of exertion.
Mhm.
It's so exciting to exercise and feel myself getting stronger from it because for a long time it would really deplete me. And so it's like I remember thinking like, okay, it feels like I'm doing nothing if I take like a 4-hour nap in the middle of the day, but I am actually doing something. I'm healing my brain. Like I'm giving myself rest, which is what I needed to, because I couldn't like like there was no powering through. Like that's one of the things too that I realized. And so I was like, society, you got to like allow for more
Yeah.
stillness and ease and space. Like how that was not all my entrepreneur friends are like, "Oh my God, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Like, you're going to launch something." And I'm like, "I'm doing nothing." And they're just like, "Why are you not doing anything?" And I'm just like, but that was like the mentality. So this has been a tonic for me. And we started off
I
tapping.
know.
Oh yeah.
So
And
good.
I'm also going to start doing tapping because I feel like, I don't know why I feel like I had no trauma or like,
Ooh,
I don't know, like it's been a heavy year. And so this has just been absolutely uplifting, hugely empowering. And I'm just so, you look absolutely radiant
thank you. So do you.
too. So I feel like you're really living this. So I eat a lot of meat now. That's what I think is like the
Oh,
difference is like I eat a ton of meat. But thank you so much. But
you're
it's like
welcome.
when you are sort of taken to the edge of your health and then you're like pulled back, where you're just like, okay, like I'm in this place. It is like I think that there is like this radiance because you're just like,
Can
if
I tell
any
you
if
something?
anybody knew like what had happened in my,
Yeah.
yeah,
Let me just say you said a huge word, which is trauma. Trauma is like that we went through a major surgery, right? We had our bodies traumatized.
yeah,
And I didn't think because I had this, I got all my hormones removed, everything taken out, right? I didn't think I'd ever cry again. And this is 3 years later and I am 3 years cancer free and all this good stuff. But I just started like leaking. It's almost like, is this like, I just had a therapy session. I'm like, is this like
yeah,
trauma coming out finally? Or is it just because of such a transition year? Is it the solar flares we're having? I don't know what's going on, but you
right.
never
I know.
know. I
Right.
think that's a really huge point you brought up is that, seek mental health care as well is a really good thing.
Yes. Yeah, because it is, because I am a resilient person, right? I'm always going to think about like, even my surgery was really non invasive. Like they go in through an artery in your arm, but like I still have like a foreign object poking around in my brain. Like it is so interesting. Like yes, I totally get, like, I mean, it is. So I was chatting with another person and she's like, it's okay that you're still in it. And I'm like, oh,
I'm
that
still in
just
it.
felt so nice because I just want to be like, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. As long
I'm
as
going
you
to
have
forever
follow up
still be a little
appointments.
bit in it
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
yeah,
You know,
my once yearly
you're
brain MRI. So, yeah. Like, yeah. You are an absolute, just a stud. Oh my gosh. I
You're a
love it.
stud
I love your
too, Heather
journey. I
Gamble.
love your
I
resilience.
love you.
Thank you. I love the core life method, I think is really gorgeous. So I'm glad I get to learn more about this. And thank you so much for saying yes. I'm going to
Thank you.
stop recording. So thank you so much for saying yes to Curveball.